Good morning. I'm David Hahn, and I'm here once again on behalf of the session to continue to update you on the deliberations of the session as it relates to our reopening plans during the current pandemic and public health emergency. I have to admit that when Pastor Stephen asked me to do another video, I thought to myself, it's going to be hard to say no to him. Turns out it wasn't all that hard. What was hard, however, was to say no to Sue George. So here I am, and as before, let me provide the same disclaimers. Many of you know that in addition to working down the road here at Penn State Hershey Medical Center, I also serve on the boards of Penn State Health and Penn State University. So I do want to be clear that I am not speaking on behalf of any of these organizations, but rather as a member and elder of Derry Presbyterian Church. And once again, my comments today will be summarized in a letter that will be emailed on Monday, as well as hard copy mailed to those who do not use email. The COVID-19 task force continues to meet regularly and presented to session earlier this week recommendations for new opportunities to gather in a more familiar church schedule. Session, with some minor modifications, has approved these recommendations, which will include in-person Sunday school at 9 a.m. starting October 4th, a 30-minute modified 8 a.m. Sunday morning chapel worship service starting October 11th, and plans to move the Tuesday night outdoor worship service indoors starting October 27th. Again, these will all be detailed in the letter coming tomorrow, and as I mentioned last time, may be subject to change as new and evolving data emerges. What I do want to focus these remarks on today is the framework around which the task force has been forming its recommendations and which have been formally presented to and approved by session as a set of guiding principles as we navigate through these challenging times. There are 10 of them, and I want to walk through each of them with you. The first is safety. We have and continue to prioritize above all else the health and safety of our community, especially the concerns of the most vulnerable and marginalized. Next is community. We have a responsibility to our members, our friends, and our wider community to protect and support one another and to work together. We are all in this together. Third is to continue with the mission of the church. Through the work of the Spirit, the church is the people of God loving in the way of Jesus. We are guided by this principle as we continue to try to balance a return to familiar structure with new and transformative ways to meet the physical and spiritual needs of the congregation and the community. Fourth is a mindfulness of staff resources. We are truly blessed with the gifts and skills of our professional staff, and we must be sure to remain sensitive to their well-being as we ask them to take on new and challenging responsibilities. Next is transparency. All of our deliberations and decisions will be communicated often and clearly. Well, at least hopefully clearly. Next is to start with small groups. I mentioned this in the last video. With smaller, more manageable groups, we are better able to set, maintain, and monitor safety protocols and guidelines, as well as perform timely and adequate contact tracing should that need arise. The seventh principle is to stay outside when possible. For indoor gatherings, in addition to using large, well-ventilated spaces, we need to be thoughtful and purposeful in setting attendance caps to maintain adequate social distancing. Adherence to guidelines. While some guidelines have come under scientific, political, and even recently legal challenges, they do represent work from a diverse set of perspectives. By making use of the wisdom and work of others, we can be good neighbors and good examples to our community. Ninth is learning from best practices. Many guidelines are set around an allowable maximum or a recommended minimum. For example, the maximum number of people that can be gathered together, or a minimum distance that people should stand apart. In learning from best practices, we are asking, just because we can do something, does that mean we should? What are other institutions, including our other local churches, doing? What are their outcomes? This relates to understanding the why, not just the what and the how. Finally, is inclusiveness, ensuring as best we can that the decisions we make allow as many people as possible to have the ability and opportunity to participate fully in the life of the church. So these 10 guiding principles may seem fairly straightforward. Some might describe them with a term that I've heard, like duh. But while these guiding principles are straightforward, the task force and the session both feel that it is important to clearly articulate them. It's been said that no decision is going to make everyone happy, and that's true. But these guiding principles provide the framework to take the decisions from the how and the what and make them all about the why. And more importantly, in my opinion, they provide accountability. Finally, as I mentioned last time, the discussions in session are robust and not all decisions are unanimous, but they are rooted in respect, thoughtfulness, and love and concern for one another. The decision regarding indoor Tuesday night worship is a good example of this robust discussion, rooted in our guiding principles. Session has approved a maximum of 60 people for this indoor gathering starting October 27th. How did we arrive at that number? There are guidelines, regulations, and best practices that set a maximum of people based on percent capacity as well as total number. And while a gathering of 60 people feels like a big jump from 25, it is also well below 25% of capacity in the sanctuary. It is also a number based on our assessment of the structure where people can appropriately distance themselves. 60 also aligns with the number of people who have been attending the Tuesday night outdoor worship services thus far. The details of this and the other in-person gatherings will be in the letter coming tomorrow, and a link will also be included in the Thursday e-news. I encourage each of you to read it, ask questions, and convey your thoughts and opinions. And while the letter will describe the how and the what, my hope is that I have conveyed to you the why. We, as the session, are accountable to you and to our mission to proclaim God's word, share God's love, and practice God's justice. Thank you for listening and for the opportunity to share these thoughts with you.